Tom Hanks portrays Mr. Rogers in the film A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, in theaters starting today. Well, it's a timely story of kindness triumphing over cynicism and is based on the true story of a real-life friendship between Fred Rogers and a journalist. We have that real-life journalist with us today, Tom Juneau, along with Bill Eisler, who served as CEO and president of the Fred Rogers Company. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start off with this, Tom. This film is largely inspired by a cover story you wrote for Esquire about Mr. Rogers. Tell us about that.
Well, in 1998, I was assigned a story about Fred Rogers. I was working at Esquire magazine. We were doing a story on American heroes, and there was an editor there, a young editor, who was passionate about the idea that Fred Rogers was an American hero, and he thought it would be really interesting to have me do the piece, because I was a somewhat controversial journalist at the time.
How did your relationship evolve after you wrote the profile on him?
I definitely got an education as time went on. I mean, I have to say that when I first met Fred, I realized pretty quickly that he was unlike any other human being I'd ever met. And you know, he resolutely drew me in and drew me into his world and to his way of seeing things. And the education I received was in not just the fact that he was a hero, but that he was a different kind of hero. He was a soft-spoken hero, and he was a powerfully kind hero.
All right, Bill, what makes Mr. Rogers' legacy so special? Explain how this film really showcases and honors him so well.
I had the opportunity to work with Fred as the president of his company at the time, Family Communications, which is now Fred Rogers Productions. And that was about a 35-year working relationship, but I had met him earlier. Obviously, I'm from Pittsburgh and was in child development, and because of his work with young children, I had the opportunity to meet with him in the early 70s, and we developed a relationship, and I stayed in touch with him. And I think this film really captures a lot of what Fred Rogers was about. I mean, it is about the power of relationships. He developed a relationship with Tom. I don't think any of us realized how intense that relationship was. I mean, they had communicated by phone and by email for the entire time Fred was alive. So power of relationships was very, very important to Fred. It was all about people, and Tom was a person in his life and a friend of his. Also, I think the idea of Fred's attention to the individual person, how he really concentrated on a person when he was talking with that person. He didn't talk to a person, he talked with a person. And the other thing is, it really highlights the issues of how important children are and were to Fred's work. And I think that what the writers did by taking the story that Tom wrote and really enveloping that around Fred's work is just amazing. And the director, the way she put it all together by doing it as part of a neighborhood program, is even more brilliant. So it shows a lot about Fred as Fred Rogers and as Mr. Rogers. And again, there's no difference between the two, except in one, it's a human being who is talking to adults or anybody around him, and another who is really developing a program for children.
Tom, Bill, thank you so much for talking with us. You can find out more about the film at abeautifulday.movie.